It's 2025, and I already cannot wait for 2026. Mac Engel, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, Engel Angle podcast. Happy New Year, everybody. It's a very exciting time because this time it's going to be different. I don't know if you're one of those people who sets resolutions or goals at the start of the year or reads these self-help books or maybe scrolls on social media and you see all these quotes given by the likes of Denzel Washington and Anthony Hopkins about do this and this is all you need to know for your life and do that and your life will be that much better, or all these other things. If you do, great. Maybe it clicks and maybe it works. I believe in them. I do, kind of. But I do know one thing is the older I have been allowed to grow, which I do believe in that. I do believe getting older is a blessing. It's good luck because I'm at that point in my life, I'm starting to lose people. And I have a pretty good idea that it's only going to happen more often. In fact, a very wise man once told me as a doctor, and he said, you know, Mac, at some point you're going to get very sick and die. It's very deep. But in terms of those goal settings and what we're going to do, and this time it's going to be different and all these other things, I do believe one of the mistakes that we do make is that we set too many of them. We set ourselves up for failure. It's kind of like weight loss. I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to lose 100 pounds. I'm going to lose 150. I'm going to lift 8,000 pounds. Start with something that is an attainable goal that's a win. Start with something that allows you to look back and say, I did that. And then set another one and another one. And allows you to start setting up scenarios for yourself where you just keep stacking up wins and you don't stop. So even if you do have a setback, let's say you do want to lose 10 pounds or 15 pounds, start with something that is attainable in a realistic amount of time. I'm going to lose 5 pounds. Okay, well, if you do it in 5 years, that's a little bit different. If you do it in 2 weeks, or maybe even 3 weeks, that's an attainable goal. Set those things up for yourself where you can feel good about yourself, that you are going in the direction you want. Which leads me to my topic for today, and that is, what the hell am I going to do with all of my stuff that I no longer want? Specifically, autographed books. I've been going through some stuff, and I'm sure you're kind of in the same boat, or a lot of people are, which is, over the years, you have obtained books that have autographs. Here's the fatal flaw with the autographed or signed copy of a book. You can't display it. You can display the book, but you can't display the autograph. And it's a terrible mistake that the authors and the purchaser of that book make. I did. I have gone through the excruciating exercise of holding book signings. Maybe the most humiliating thing I've ever done. I've done probably 6 book signings, and I've had a couple where, I think I've had 2, where I've had maybe a total of 2 people show up. I love telling this story. I did a book several years ago, many, many years ago, that the publisher said, hey, look, it's in your contract. You have to do a book signing. You have to do 3. And I begged him, I said, please, I don't want to do this one. And he said, it's in your contract. I said, all right. And he understood, and he said, hey, look, when it's done, go out and have a nice dinner on me. Just send me the bill. I said, I know you don't want to do it. And I said, I don't want to do it because I know nobody's going to be there. So I get there at it's after Black Friday, so it's during shopping season, and it's at a Barnes & Noble, and it's going to be at noon from, 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock on a Saturday. Again, this is during shopping season. And I get there at 11:45. I get there at 10:45. And the marketing person comes out and she's so excited. Oh, Mac, I'm so excited to see you. This is so great. We've got copies, you get something to drink. And I turn the corner in the Barnes & Noble and there are rows of chairs in front of a desk where there are copies of my new book, a place for me to sit, and a Sharpie. Now, again, I've done this before, and I look at it and I thought, oh my God. So there's a nice older woman already there waiting for me. And I think, okay, maybe this won't be so bad. Very nice. She's bought a copy of the book. She wants to give it to her husband. I cheerfully sign it. Thank her so much. Can't thank her enough. That was at about 10:50. And for the next 2 hours, nobody showed up. I sat there and read magazines and drank free Starbucks, so that was a win. Sat there for 2 hours and stared at patrons who awkwardly looked at me, feeling sorry for me, might I add, that this idiot author who thought enough of himself to have a book signing and no one is showing up in front of rows of empty chairs. So forget that part. Now let's go back to the origin of this, which is the signed copy of the book. Again, here's a book that I have. It's a signed copy. Dick Vitale, the very famous former basketball coach and member of the Basketball Hall of Fame Museum, as a commentator for ESPN, Dick Vitale. He signed this for me. There's a story behind this. So many, many moons ago, I was a teenager, and I met Dick Vitale. I was 17 years old, and I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the Final Four. There's some corporate event that my father has been invited to, and he said, "Son, would you like to go with me?" Yes. I'm an aspiring sports journalist, and there's going to be a lot of famous basketball people there. There's Bill Walton, who's no longer with us. Lots of other famous college basketball people in attendance at this event. And again, I'm 17 years old, just kind of walking around in awe of all these people. And there's Dick Vitale, standing there talking to somebody. And I walk up to him and I introduce myself and I said, "Mr. Vitale, I'm a big fan of yours and I hope to follow in your footsteps in sports journalism someday." And he says, "That's great, kid." Turns and starts talking to his friend. It was like the biggest blow off I've ever seen. Until I met him again. I was a sophomore or junior in college at the University of Kansas, working in their athletic media relations department as a student assistant. And at the time, Kansas was very good in men's basketball, and oftentimes ESPN and its broadcast team would come to televise games there. Again, I'm working for the athletic department in the basketball, in the media relations office for the athletic department, and the big signature events that we had back then were basketball games. Duh. Dick Vitale's there. I'm told to go hand some stuff to Mr. Vitale. I do it, and I introduce myself. He could not have cared less or made any more of an attempt to blow me off. Now, as you can imagine, and I'm sure it's happened to you, when you meet famous people and they blow you off, it lasts forever, and it completely forms your impression of that person. And it works the other way. If they give you 5 seconds, you think that person is golden, no matter what they do in their personal life. If they give you even the 0.2 seconds of their time, especially if they take a picture or sign an autograph, then they have made a fan for life. So, as I've gotten older and I've spent more time around famous people, celebrities, and now I'm just kind of numb to it, I think nothing of it, I do realize that when you do meet them, that you have to have some grace. That a lot of times, unknowingly, you could be intruding on their time, you could be intruding on their conversation. The last place you ever want to interject yourself is if they're eating dinner, or in those kinds of social settings where it's their time. Now, they are public figures, and I understand that, and they understand that. But there is a time and a place. Now, if they're rude, they're rude. But the more I thought about it, I was like, well, was Dick Vitale really that rude to me back then? So about 8 years ago, the Final Four came to Dallas-Fort Worth, and there was an event, a Final Four-related event, being held where Dick Vitale was going to be. And I thought, oh, this is a good idea. I'll go talk to him, ask him about this sort of thing, relate this story, and basically columnize or opinionate that you've got to give these people some time. You have to understand that maybe they're busy, they've got a job, maybe they're just having a bad day. Give them some time, grace, and understanding that maybe if they don't make all that time for you, it's not you. It's just that they're busy. I could say that now as an adult, and especially having done this job for as long as I have, I understood it. So I write about it, and I recount the same story that I just shared with you, that I met Vitale a few times and he had blown me off. And then when I went and interviewed him, I kept trying to, he didn't quite understand because he was so caught up in the answer that he was delivering, and he was a showman and he was delivering his show, that he kind of quit. He kind of missed what I was trying to ask him. So anyways, I write about it. I think nothing of it. And a few weeks later, I'm at work and my boss says, Dick Vitale said something to you. And I said, no, he didn't. His PR person did. She said, no, open it up. He sent something to you. So I open it up, and sure enough, he had read the column. He had read the column, and he writes me a long handwritten note apologizing about his behavior, which he did not need to do. I didn't need that apology. I totally understood it as an adult. But he felt the need to reach out and to apologize. And one of the things he included was a book that he had been promoting, which was Getting a W in the Game of Life, as you can see right here. Very nice. So it's been in my closet or on my shelf for these many years, and he has signed it. Mac, you are awesome, baby. Dick Vitale, Hall of Fame 2008. Okay, now here's my challenge. As I yearn to get rid of everything, what am I supposed to do with this? I can't display it because the autograph is on the inside cover. So it's just sitting on a shelf. So that's one. And I can't get rid of it. I've gotten rid of tons of other books, God knows how many other things, but I just can't bring myself to get rid of it. Even though I can't even see what is the priceless part or the personal part of that possession. Dick Vitale autographed it to me. Yippee. Okay, here's one, Any Given Monday. This is a book about sports injuries and how to prevent them. And it is written by a renowned orthopedic specialist, Dr. James Andrews. You probably know the name. He's performed umpteen million surgeries on prominent athletes these many decades. I met him. He's a nice guy. We had a nice conversation. And at the end, he says, here, let me give you a book. Let me sign it for you. So let's see here. Where did he sign it? To Mac, thanks for all you do. Help us in prevention of youth sports injuries, Dr. Jim Andrews. He wrote this with Don Yeager, a terrific sports journalist, by the way. Okay, here's another. What am I supposed to do with it? I can't display it. Do I tear the page out and then put it behind a frame or something? I don't know. We've been going about this all wrong for these many years. Here's one that I really liked. Lone Survivor. This is the book, first-person account, written by the Navy SEAL Marcus Luttrell that eventually became the movie starring Mark Wahlberg. I had an opportunity to interview Marcus when they were going around the media tour to promote the movie Lone Survivor, and he and I had a terrific conversation. He's a really interesting guy. We actually knew some people in common, and I had the book, or maybe he gave it to me. I can't remember. And he writes to me, Mac, never quit. I guess that says Marcus. I don't know what it says. This is another one. It's personalized. It's to me. What am I supposed to do? How do I sort of celebrate that I met the famous person here? I don't know. Here's one that I never thought I'd get. This is the book Contempt by the late Ken Starr. Now, you might remember Ken Starr back in the late 80s and early 90s when he was the Solicitor General, but you probably remember him as the special appointed prosecutor who went after President Clinton during the Whitewater scandal, and probably the one you remember more, the Monica Lewinsky story. That was Ken Starr. So of all the things that I have been fortunate enough to do in my career, getting to know Ken Starr when he was the president of Baylor University and eventually having his phone number and conversing with him occasionally, yeah, that was not on my list. So a few years ago when he was promoting this book, I did a sit-down interview with him where it's just he and I visited for probably about an hour. was a fascinating interview. Whatever you think of him and his political agendas, his intellectual, he was an intellectual, and he was exceptionally bright, very well read, and his ability to retain information was incredible. So he says, "Here, Mac, let me give you a book." So let's say, "To Mac," what's that say here? "To Mac," he spelled it right, "with appreciation for your professionalism, Ken Starr." One of my many regrets, I have lots of those, he and I talked often about getting together for lunch. He lived in Waco, and we never did get a chance to do it. I was always very disappointed that I didn't follow up with that because he wanted to do it, and I wanted to do it, and we didn't. And a couple of years ago, he passed. He had been dealing with cancer for a while. But this is one of those random mementos, possessions, that I don't know why. It means something to me. I don't know why, but it does. And again, I wouldn't necessarily say he and I aligned politically, but here's my challenge with this. It's on the inside cover. What am I supposed to do with this? Again, because I want to throw everything away. Now here's a much tougher one. I was given this following book many, many, many years ago. This is The Best There Ever Was, Sam Baugh. Sam Baugh was arguably the greatest football player of his generation. He was a member of the first ever class to the Pro Football Hall of Fame and Museum decades ago. He went to TCU, and he went on to have a long and celebrated career for the Washington Redskins. He was a two-way player, and again, maybe the greatest player of his generation. So somebody many years ago wrote a book on him, and I had the book, and one of my favorite interviews ever, I drove out to Sam Baugh's house in Rotan, Texas. Now, Rotan, Texas is not even a spot on a map. It's smaller than that. But I went out there, and I had a chance to interview him. And it was a most cherished professional experience. It was just he and I in his living room, and Sam Baugh sitting there telling stories that he has probably told no less than 1,000 times. And I'm a young guy, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is Sammy Baugh. And it was really nice. And at the end, we're walking down. You wouldn't even know in this very, very small house that Sam Baugh lived there. You would have no idea. You just thought it was some small rancher. But sure enough, it's a football legend. And he says, "Do you want something to drink?" And he had kind of this to his mouth a little bit. I think because he had been a bit of a smoker and a dipper. So he says, "Do you want a drink?" And I said, "Yeah, what do you got?" So he opens up a refrigerator, and it's water and soda. I said, "Yeah, I'll take a Dr. Pepper." So he grabs it, and then he shakes it up really good, and he hands it to me, and he's laughing while he hands it to me. I said, "Oh, geez, thanks." So I said, "I did something you're not supposed to do professionally, but I didn't care. I did it anyways." I said, "Hey, I've got a book. Would you sign it?" And he had a rule about signing. People would come out and ask for autographs all the time, especially professional autograph collectors. And he would always just say, "Just pay me whatever you think is fair." Now, that's a big business. And he would just say, "Yeah, pay me what you think is fair." So he signed this book to me. Let's see where it says. Just very simple. "Best wishes to Max Sam Baugh." That's pretty cool, right? But it's not on the cover. It's on the inside. Again, what am I supposed to do with it? I've got a couple other things like that. So it occurred to me, I had the solution, and I denied myself how to fix this very easy problem of distinguishing your book, the signed book, the prized book, the one that is different and special from the rest that's sitting there either on the shelf in an Amazon warehouse or one at Barnes & Noble, if they still exist. And that is, ask the author to sign the cover. So back in 2007, I can't believe that, I wrote my first book. It's about Tony Romo. I had 2 weeks to write it. Just like all great literature, it is written in 2 weeks. It's more or less a kid's book. I was very proud of it, actually. And one little detail about this book that I don't think I've shared before, if I have, not very often. So when I wrote it, Tony was in his first season as the starting quarterback, and I told him I was going to do it, and he was very nice about it, and it came out like right around Thanksgiving of 2007, and I was covering the Cowboys then as a beat reporter, and he and I knew each other. I don't think he's my biggest fan anymore, but at the time, he was blowing up. He was dating Jessica Simpson, and the book had just come out. I think I made $5,000 from it. That's nothing. So I walk up to him in the locker room and I say, hey, Tony, the book's coming out. Do you want me to get you some copies for it? Because it is a neat book, and he's a young guy, and celebrity and fame was just getting ready to embrace him. So he was kind of new to it. And he said, oh, you don't have to. I went out and bought it last night. I was like, what? He said, I went out and bought it. I never did understand that. I always appreciated that. And in fact, when I left the beat, I wrote him a very nice note, and he wrote me a very nice note back on a text message. And the one thing that I did do when I covered the team, I had the PR person. I said, hey, can you get him to sign it? And Tony handled this the best way you should. He signed the cover. That's the way you do it. Don't sign the inside jacket. So it says, to Mac, you're getting better. Smiley face, Tony Romo, number 9. Spells it your, Y-O-U-R. This means a lot to me. So here is the way to solve this book dilemma. The one that you got signed, but nobody else knows it because it's just on the inside cover. Do the right thing. Have them sign the cover. If not, put it to Goodwill. Happy New Year's, everybody.